The business analyst sits in the middle and works like as a translator between both. If you're speaking with a customer, you don't want to use jargon like workflows and Power Automate. They will like look at you like, what are you talking about?
You have to be able to speak with your team and the technical, as well as translate that into business person language.
That's what we need to do as a part of our role, to remember and have that empathy for the people that might not understand.
How do you feel that that experience has prepared you well for your current role as a consultant?
And funny thing is, I wasn't even like looking for that job specifically. I'm trying to dig deeper and understand the problem, to understand the business.
You have a passion for UI, UX improvement. How did you discover that you were so passionate?
If there is an instruction manual for your system that has like 100 pages, your system is bad. They would run like a usability lab. They will give them a specific task without giving them instructions, and they will be testing how intuitive the system is.
What are some things that companies or citizen developers could easily do to get a quick boost in UI UX? Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Griffin, the host of Citizen Developer, and today I have with me Anna Black on the show. Anna is a seasoned professional with a diverse background spanning recruitment, customer service, and business analysis, where she now finds herself as a functional CE consultant at Hitachi Solutions Europe. Anna's journey showcases the power of varied experience converging into expertise. She holds the BCS International Diploma in Business Analysis, which has equipped her with invaluable insights into understanding the different viewpoints and applying her knowledge effectively in real world scenarios. Anna, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. You are our first European guest on the show, so I'm excited as well as our first woman on the show. I'm excited to just pick
Oh,
your brain
okay.
and see the wisdom that you have, and we'll get into those things later. But I want to start the conversation on this BCS International Diploma in Business Analysis. Now, I don't want to offend you, but I wasn't necessarily aware of what this was right before um, learning about you and preparing for this conversation. Can you briefly explain what this is and why you decided to pursue this diploma?
Yes, sure. It is quite difficult to say it, isn't it? A mouthful. So yes, the BCS, I believe it stands for British Computing Society. Yeah, an international diploma. Although it says international, I don't know if it's actually worldwide known. I believe it is. So let's go for that. Um, so what it is, it's basically one of the like qualification you can get, similar to accounting or any other profession out there. So for me to be able to gain this, I had to sit 4 exams, and then at the end of it I also had to have an oral exam, so 5 exams in total. All of those for exam individually give you some sort of qualification. So one of them were, for example, like requirements engineering. So I'm qualified to be, I don't know, engineer for requirements or something like this. But yeah, overall, to gain that full qualification, you need to do 5. Lots of people decide to do only 4 and not bother with the oral exam. It was quite difficult and challenging, so but it is still worth it. And why did I decided to go with it? When I joined RBS, as a business analyst, that was my first proper job as a business analyst. I just had the opportunity to do it. And at the time when I was looking for new jobs, lots of the job adverts, companies were looking for that specific qualification. So as I said, when I had the opportunity, I just went with it. I didn't do it like at once. I think it was over a period of probably 2 years or so. But yeah, as I said, definitely worth doing it.
How has your kind of experience in being a business analyst and maybe preparing for this diploma and different things, how has that prepared you for your current role as a consultant? Because I mean, we understand and we've had a lot of conversations that
Mhm.
consultants, you got to be, you got to have a lot more skills than just, how to build a Power Automate flow or something, right? You got to have some
Of
technical
course.
skills. You got to be able to be a business analyst when the time comes sometimes. How do you feel that that experience has prepared you well for your current role as a consultant?
So funny thing is that actually when I joined as a as a business analyst, I work for a Dynamics project. So it was already kind of my step in to that sphere of Microsoft technology. At the time, it wasn't even labeled as a Power Platform. I work with Dynamics 365, and I'm still working with Dynamics 365. Um, Another time, I did lots of the engagement with stakeholders, writing documentation, as you said, and so on. But I realized that I'm more interested in the actual technology and like building things and creating things and so on. So after spending 2 years working as a BA, I decided, okay, I wanted to do more, and I spoke with few people who work at the time as a consultants. I wanted to understand what the role involves, and I decided, yeah, that's definitely for me. Um, and funny thing is, I wasn't even like looking for that job specifically. I just received I got an email. I think it was either email. I think it was the email on like a message on LinkedIn from a recruiter, uh, and they just saw me working as a BA, and I literally just have a one line about my experience. I'm working with D365. That was absolutely that was all, like just literally one line, and he
Yeah.
managed to find me, contacted with me. It's like, oh, I want to put you forward for that opportunity. And 8 years ago, I don't think there was that many consultants yet. So I went for the interview, and yeah, I managed to secure the role. So yeah, it was amazing, and lots of luck as well for me at the time.
What skills do you think you learned in that time as 10 years ago as a business analyst
Mhm.
that have, you've been able to still use and have made you a good consultant now as a consultant? This is a question that might be on the spot, but
Yeah, so I think there are two type of people that work with Power Platform. One coming from more like technical background and the developer background, and I'm the opposite when I'm coming from the BA perspective. And I don't want to. Yeah, I believe that gives me a bit of more advantage because with the technical skills, um you can google it, and there's so many different courses to do like this kind of programming language and so on. As I said, I'm not undermining anyone skills, abilities, or anything like this, but I just think it's having learned programming language myself, I just think it's easier to do it, and the soft skills, it's more difficult to acquire. So it's better to to have that experience and that step in the Power Platform. And as you said yourself, like the consultant and business analyst, that they are more or less used as the same. Like business analyst is more kind of internal, long consultant is like an external business analyst. So yeah, having that, I believe, makes me slightly better consultant, because I'm not focusing just on the technology. I'm trying to dig deeper and understand the problem, to understand the business, and so on, and kind of then find the appropriate solution, and not do it in the isolation, but understand like the mission of the company, have the vision, the whole objectives and so on. Nothing works in the isolation when you do that through the lenses of a business analysis. So yep.
yeah, and I don't think you're alone in in holding that opinion. I know a lot of the people I have on this show, as well as myself. I mean, that's kind of, I had zero technical experience before becoming a consultant. I mean, I was googling what this stuff was in my interviews. What Microsoft Dynamics is, what the Power Platform is, and was able to take the first few months of my career to learn the technical skills, because
Mhm.
I would agree with you that largely the technical expertise can be learned, and plus it's always changing, so you always have to relearn and do different things. But the soft skills that you have to
Mhm.
require, that you need to acquire for, you know communicating effectively with the customer, having a high degree of emotional intelligence so that, on high stress situations when the project's nearing an end, or are you keeping your cool and your as well as your team leadership and being able to, work with others. And so I completely agree where you're coming from. We're not
Mhm.
trying to offend any technical experts out there. They're
Good.
doing
Yes.
stuff. I'm the first person to message a technical guru on, if I have a question about something like, hey, how do I do this? I'm definitely the first person to go and lean on them. But one question I had in here, and I think it's funny, at least when I talk to maybe my friends or I see jokes online where, people are talking and, make jokes at maybe consultants or business analysts and are like, what are they actually doing besides just maybe creating an Excel spreadsheet or making the professional PowerPoint creators and different things. Sometimes I feel like there's a joke or a stigma around
Mhm.
consultants or business analysts of like, well, what are they actually doing?
Yeah.
They just sit in an office chair and make excels, right, and make charts. But
So you see, I'm not really familiar with that kind of opinion. I'm more familiar with, perceiving business analyst and is a meat in a sandwich, and that sandwich is technology and a business, and the business analyst sits in the middle and works like as a translator between both. Because if you're speaking with a customer, you don't want to use jargon like workflows and Power Automate. They will like look at you as like, what are you talking about? And it's the same, when you're talking with the technology, you need to be more precise what exactly you're looking for. So, I absolutely disagree with that with that opinion that the business analyst just work with the Excel and presentation. And the beauty of being like the Power Platform consultant is that you also work with the technology when you can build and create and design things. So it kind of stands out comparing to being any other consultant, because like, as let's say management consultants, they just kind of, yeah, I think they would work more on the paper, and in the presentation. But the Power Platform consultant is a completely different story. So yeah.
I agree, and I mean, I'm a consultant, so I totally get it, right, and so are you. So
Hmm.
I uh I think what you said there is great, and I want to hone in on that. Is you're a translator. You have to be
Yeah.
able to speak, with your team and the technical, as well as translate that into, you know, uh, normal, just business person language, right? I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of times if you're on a project and you're working with, somebody from the client, they don't necessarily know what background processes or workflows or business rules are working. They just know that, when a salesperson goes clicks this button, this happens. That's what happens. And so you
Yeah.
need to be able to kind of break that down and explain it in a way that makes sense to them. Even I remember when I was first learning about the Power Platform. There's a lot of great content out there, but a lot of times these people have 10, 20 years of experience, and even just something like the word interface, it might be like so, self-explanatory to someone like myself or you or them, but to somebody with zero computer software background, it's like,
Yeah.
what does that even mean? What does an asynchronous workflow even mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
No,
um
absolutely, it doesn't, and it's like, and it's quite difficult as well after you working with the technology for few years. You have like this trained muscle that you just use those words without really like thinking. So like every time I'm going to a customer meeting, like I just need to have a word to myself, like just don't use those words, just don't use those words, and try to avoid them. So yeah, it's not easy, but definitely that's what we need to do as a part of our role to remember and have that empathy for the people that might not understand all that jargon that we are using. So yes, absolutely.
It sounds like you, before becoming a consultant, besides that one project, a D365 project, you
Mhm.
didn't necessarily have a lot of, technical experience or computer software background.
Actually, it's quite opposite. It's actually
Oh
quite
my goodness.
opposite. Yes, yes. So like the interesting story, it's like, oh, um, you know, I actually meant to be studying software engineering, and the literally last minute I withdrawn from one university and went to study business management instead. And then it was like haunting me since then. And then one of the jobs that I had as an analyst, it was really boring. We were working with lots of like Excel spreadsheets, just comparing data and doing, different wonderful things. And um, again, back from when I was in high school, I learned what was it, Visual Basic, and I learned lots of Excel as well. So after a while, being fed up with all those manual tasks, someone showed me at the time how to record like macro in Excel in the Visual Basic, and I started to kind of almost study, okay, how that really, what that really looks like. And I realized at the time it's more or less a Visual Basic, very similar syntax and so on. And from there, I really try to build on that, on that knowledge for myself, and try to improve the things for me and my team. And after a while, okay, I did what I could, I want to move on, and I want to take that and do something else. So again, I landed quite simple analyst job. But what happened, they were bringing like a private, it was asset management company, and they were bringing a new fund. It was like a private fund, and there was lots of like regulations and so on. So what they needed to do, they need to like create a bespoke system to manage it, and for that to be for that system to be connected to like the stock market information and so on. And it's like, oh wow, you can actually do that in Excel. And it's like, really? It's like, yeah. And I created like a quick proof of concept for them around it, and they absolutely loved it. And then like all of a sudden, from being analyst, they gave me opportunity to be developer who like built something like that. So yeah, it was absolutely amazing experience for me. That was my early days of trying to do something that is has a nice interface without even knowing there is an interface, so similar experience to you. And again, learning, like, every problem I had, I would just Google it and try to learn a new piece of code, and so on. So yeah, it's quite opposite. I did a technical role, quite technical role, and then I moved to the business, to being business analyst, and I kind of step back to having a bit of both, I would say.
Certainly. So, what did you do to learn the Power Platform in particular? You mentioned, you were Googling and different things. Was that just the method of your Power Platform education, which is fair if that's what it is. But what did you do to learn the Power Platform, and how do you still stay up to date?
So for the Power Platform, I must say that I did have few really good unofficial mentors and people I could reach out to you when I needed. So yeah, that's definitely the key, to have someone you can talk to and run the ideas by, have some ask for advice and things like this, just to have that ultimate reassurance. So yeah, I was quite lucky that even working as a business analyst, I already there was someone more technical on the team, so they were showing me different things, and that's how I kind of started. And they encouraged me, okay, look into exams, and that kind of prompted me to obviously explore a bit more. I'm really driven by the deadline, so if I have a deadline for doing something, like let's say I'll set up an exam and I want to pass an exam, then I will do my best to learn that new skills and be able to pass that exam. And yes, and Googling. So usually if I will have a problem and I'm like, okay, I don't know how to resolve it, then I will, try finding, there's lots of things like, community forums, blogs. At the time, my favorite one was Tip of the Day. There wasn't that many other ones, but I remember this one. um, so yeah, that's what I would advise to others. Find someone who can be your mentor, and also anything that is there online is your best friend. So yeah.
If you are thinking to yourself that you want to get into low code development or learn about the Power Platform, then I want to personally invite you to sign up for this completely free self paced course that is going to cover everything you need to know to begin low code development today. Not too long ago, I was a complete beginner and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know what the Power Platform was. The content in this course is handpicked by me so you can understand the basics of the Power Platform and ultimately be prepared to take the PL 900 certification if that's something you're interested in. If you are interested, be sure to follow the first link in the description down below, and do not forget to use the promo code YouTube at checkout in order to get the course for completely free. This is going to give you immediate access to the entire course so that you can start to change your future today. Now, let's get back to the conversation. After getting to know you and reading some of your blog posts, which we'll get into later, and things you share on LinkedIn, you have a passion for, UI UX improvement, or here, anybody out there who's a beginner, user interface and user experience improvement, right? UI UX. How did you discover that you were so passionate about UI UX?
So as I mentioned before, like unknowingly, when I was building that system and Excel, creating like dashboards and user interfaces as well, because you can do that in Excel. You have like the input forms. So at the time, I remember I was like really trying to pay attention to make sure everything is nicely aligned. There's like enough spacing for people to see it. So like unknowingly I was trying to make it look good for the users and then work with the users directly, because we were literally sitting, no, the users were sitting next to me. So yes, I was trying to engage with them and like get their feedback and constantly improve. So as I said, I was doing it not knowing that it's actually labeled like a user experience, user interface, and so on. And from there, when I work as a business analyst, we actually had what was the role? I don't remember exactly the role. I think it was it was user experience manager. Um, so we had a user experience manager working with us on the dynamics project, and at the end of each, like the individual phase, they would run like a usability lab when they will gather the users and then like ask them to, for example, create an account or create a contact. They will give them a specific task without giving them instructions, and they will be testing how intuitive the system is, for the user to be able to complete that task. And it was like I was really fascinated by it. And then in the back of it, obviously we're receiving feedback and like some ideas for improvement and so on. So yeah, gradually it was kind of growing in me. And then through my career, when I had some more like bench time, when I, always advises we have a bench time, use it to for some learning and so on. So I would invest quite a lot of time, like just going through some, learning courses, just reading some books about it and so on. I wouldn't call myself a professional. I'm just really fascinated by the subject. That's all it is.
Yeah, what are some things here? Actually, let me before my question. So, I completely understand and agree with what you're saying, and that a lot of times, we might, I mean, we're developing a form on in a model driven app, right? And
Mhm.
a lot of times this form might make perfect sense to us, but I mean, I work a lot with sales implementations, and sales teams are particularly um, bad with managing CRM data because they just want to sell, and they often see the data inputs in the system as something that's taking their time away from selling, right? Because it's sometimes often just used for management, right? And so I find that a lot of times, especially with sales teams, the importance of having a good user experience or a good user interface is particularly crucial because, like, it also blows my mind how, I mean, the Power Platform is great and allows, companies and people with zero computer science background to go and make an app. But at the same time, I find that when people without the bright experience do that, the forms or the UI is just not good. As respectfully as I can say that,
Yeah,
you know,
no, I agree.
where they'll have a form and 80% of the fields are blank because they're not applicable to this sort of record, but it just introduces maybe all this scrolling or, having to search around on the form where, the data that you actually need is. What are some things that companies or citizen developers could easily do to get a quick boost in UI UX?
So, like you meant, like one of the things you mentioned is obviously like having so many fields to fill in, and so on. Is, just work with the users, and it's like and kind of understand what is the purpose of recording certain information. Is that even useful? Is it like what you gonna do about it? Is it requirement because someone on the top floor wants to see the stats on it, or does it really like bring a real value? So work with the user, understand what they can provide, what they can input in the system, and like what sort of outputs they're going to be interested in, and streamline all the forms, strip them down, if remove all the information that is not needed. Like when it comes to the form, we have the business process flows, like use them to actually help the user and, navigate them through the process. And then if there is an instruction manual for your system that has like 100 pages, your system is bad because it's not intuitive enough, and you need to do something about it. So yeah, like as I said, speak with the users. They always have great ideas how to improve the system and so on. I participated in like a few like discovery sessions directly with the users as well. And some of the users are like finding the workarounds, but some of them are absolutely like brilliant ideas, and you can take those workarounds and you can implement them and deploy them to all the users, and all of them can like benefit from that. And it's simple solutions as well. And again, like any other ideas, so if you're starting from like building your app from scratch, just look for inspiration elsewhere. Like when it comes to, for example, like social media, we never received a training how to use Instagram or a Facebook. We naturally know how to do it. So have that kind of motto when you're creating something, that someone takes it and know what to do about it straight away. So yeah.
I completely, and as well as just kind of, as we're talking about fields on a form, like strategically grouping the fields maybe into sections or into columns or even into tabs, right, into the form of that are strategic, that are, these
Yeah.
are all related, these are all related, these are all related, as well as, I think it's kind of another step, but utilizing just some basic business rules. So I was on a project where, for leads, there
Hmm.
were different types of data points, different fields that we'd want to capture dependent on the lead source, or like how the lead came into the system. And um, in their old experience, they just showed every lead field on the form. And so
Yeah.
what this caused was, if the lead source was a certain database, then 70% of these fields now just became irrelevant because it was no longer a manual lead, or something like that, right? And
Hmm.
so it's, but able to take that one additional step of, okay, let's hide all these fields if the lead source equals this or doesn't equal this, and just the ability that has to free up the form is and improve the experience, I've found, is huge. Because then when we kind of built it and showed it to them, they were like, oh my goodness, this is great, like we're getting all this these fields out of there, and different things. And
So yeah, so when it comes to like model driven app, I don't, you mentioned my blog before. So yeah, one of my very first blog was actually about optimizing the user experience in model driven apps. When I talk about things like, for example, using the business roles, when you're building a form, make sure that all the key fields are on the first tab. Anything that is not needed, move it to other tabs. Use the reference panels instead of having like three or four subgrids when the user needs to like keep scrolling. Just group them together. You can create a, like, colorful icons, and give that, a bit of an uplift to your model driven apps. So definitely there's so many like really simple rules, but like overall they can really improve how the things work and look. So yeah, definitely we have the common understanding in that subject.
One last thing, as well as with model driven apps, there are so many different controls and things that you can add. Like, I don't see a reason why someone should ever just have a plain Boolean field on their form. Like, you should be using the toggle control or the checkbox control, or any of those controls, the form controls that come with Microsoft Dynamics. I find that it just, especially if you're on a mobile experience, saves clicks. It's just, it's the experience is just way better. But um,
No, of course, but the only other thing you need to remember, it's you do want to find a balance, because if you put too many controls, everything like in the PCFs, okay, it will look good, but then you need to think about the how that's going to impact the performance, because everything is going to be adding extra code for the when the form is loading. So if you create something that really looks good, but it takes a few minutes for the user to load, that's just going to automatically negatively impact your user experience as well. So it's like there's a thin balance of adding things and making them look better, and all of a sudden degrading the performance as well. So yeah,
phenomenal
another
point.
point.
Phenomenal. I appreciate you checking me. I do.
No problem.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But yeah, I think it's cool how Microsoft allows little ways to you know functionally improve the experience. I want to talk to you about your blog. So you have a blog called the Power Platform Cookbook. Can you explain? And we're on the topic of UI UX. How did you find the inspiration to create in this community for this blog, and what made you want to start the blog, etc.?
Oh wow, another long story. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Absolutely.
Um, so yes, so the idea of having a blog was actually with me since I started my first consultant job. So like 8 years ago, one of the colleagues, he had a blog at the time about data and analytics, and it's like, oh wow, that's so cool, that's so cool. I want to have a blog as well. But next few months later, I was away to maternity, and all of a sudden, that idea didn't, I never really do anything about it. And it was in my head since then. And then like I came back to work, and then like disappeared for another maternity, so again the timing wasn't right. And all of a sudden, my two kids are slightly older now. Not that old, 3 and 5, but yeah, all of a sudden I do have a bit more spare time, and it's like, okay, this is my opportunity to find myself a hobby that is not necessarily just going to safari parks and zoo, and like do something for myself, and I'm really passionate about it as well. So I kind of trying to you know do what I like, and I look at it as my hobby. So yeah, and why cookbook? I really like cooking. So yeah. that's
What
that's what
How do you find inspiration to create a blog post? Like, how do you get the idea of, like, oh, I should create a blog post about this, and then you go and do that? Where does that inspiration come from?
it's because I had that idea for so long. Every time I thought about it, I was just coming up with those different ideas. So I I do have a quite a long list already. And it was, it's a result of, I don't know, few years of kind of wanting to do it, but never having a chance to do it. Um, and those ideas were kind of coming like, okay, this is something that I wish someone told me when I started my career, but they didn't. And as this is kind of collection of the things, like for example, the Chrome extension. yeah, blog post. I think it was like 2 3 years after working with Dynamics when I actually find out there's something like this ever even exists. So and then similarly, even now, it's not that I kind of have the list and now I'm not adding to it. There's so much, content from others and like videos and so on. You kind of have that I kind of have that open mind. Okay, I'm reading something and I'm trying to find an angle, what if I can create a blog post from my perspective, like not even necessarily, uh, put put a different perspective on the same subject, but kind of, as I said, just find a different angle and talk about something else. But that was my inspiration because someone mentioned, for example, a workflow. So yeah, different different ways, and some kind of things that I collected over the years as well.
Very cool. I wanted to transition us. I would love to give you the opportunity to share. So, admittedly, the software space, the consulting space, the business analytics space is largely dominated by men. You don't see a ton of women in the space. And so I would love to just hear your opinion on what has allowed you to be, a trailblazer, a successful, and be successful in the space as a woman. And I'd love to, you included, I wanted to share this earlier, but it didn't come up.
Hmm.
You included a quote or something that a teacher had told you, and that was that if you don't find the or you said, I'm the kind of person that if I won't find open front doors, I'll climb through a window. How does that apply to this conversation, and yeah, what advice would you have for other women in the space?
Oh, that yes, that quote, yeah, that was some random from a teacher when I was maybe 10, but it's just stick in my head. So yeah, that kind of reflects that, that I'm quite stubborn and and persistent. So even, landing my first job as a business analyst, I went to like few interviews. Like I applied for so many jobs and I didn't even get the interview. But I was just, being I was I had a goal, I wanted to achieve it, and I was like, I was doing all I could at the time to, to get that job, and eventually, that paid off for me. And one other thing was that Excel spreadsheet I built using VBA. In the back of it, I also created like documentation, how that works, and all the code, and with all the like nice print screens as well. What I've done at the time, I had a copy of that, and I was taking that to interview, and I was like showing that to people. Some people were like, "Yeah, what is it? I'm not really interested." But the job I actually landed, the project manager I interviewed me at the time, he was like, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. This is exactly what we're looking for," and so on. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of the advice I would have is, if you have a goal, stick to it. Keep trying and keep trying. Take the learnings from the things when they don't work for you. And if you did something that you are really proud of, like, don't be afraid to showcase that. Maybe not necessarily have the skills that the job requires, but you might have some transferable skills. Um so yeah, absolutely don't be afraid to show them. And with regards to the industry being dominated by men, yes, again, use that to your advantage. There's so many companies that they want to be more inclusive. They want to, have more women working for them. So again, don't be bold. Don't be afraid of the industry being dominated by men. And then similarly, companies is one thing, but even like speaking at the events and so on, I believe that like the user groups and so on, they also encourage more women to speak up. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to show your skills. So definitely go for it and don't be afraid.
I love what you said about highlighting your experience, even if it isn't true technical experience, but highlighting, wins that you've had maybe in a different part of your career or doing something differently, and being able to highlight that win as well as then highlight the transferable skills. Because I mean, as we talked about earlier, what's arguably more important as a consultant or an analyst is the soft skills, right? And I think there's a lot of people out there that have amazing soft skills, and they've developed these through their, themselves growing up, them developing their careers, and the technical expertise at the end of the day largely can be learned, at least a lot easier than the soft skills. So I love what you had to say there, and I think it's cool as I feel like more and more women are, building their careers in this space, are creating content in this space, and kind of showing other women that it's very possible. Because yeah, like you said, that having the diversity between men and women, I think, is huge. Even just down to on a project team and having the ways people think differently and ways they communicate differently and things like that. This might be a question on the spot, but has there
Mhm.
been a time where you felt like um, has there been a time where you felt like um, maybe being a woman gave you, and the emotional intelligence that you have gave you an advantage over maybe other people you were working with as a consultant?
As an advantage.
Maybe advantage isn't the right word,
Mhm.
but I think you understand what I'm saying. Like where you feel like that it was um, you were able to harness a skill that maybe other people weren't weren't executing on.
Yes, so I think it's quite common, like when working on with few technically minded men. They the kind of they more approach the problem with a hammer. And and I think, yeah, it feels like I don't want to name any kind of
Of
specific
course,
situation. I'm
of
being very
course.
careful about it, but yes, definitely, I as I said, the more the they would approach it more with a hammer, and I would like, okay, just look at the bigger picture, look at the business holistically, how that's gonna affect this, and so on. So yeah, I would say that you can take an advantage of being a woman and kind of have a different perspective, especially when, as I said, you know someone is too technically minded, and unfortunately there might be a like a stubborn developer who happens to be a man. So I genuinely don't want to discriminate, but
Sure.
yeah.
No, I know what you're saying. I don't think anyone will be offended at what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. So I wanted to, for the sake of time, love to transition us to our the after hours happy hour segment of the episode where we are able to talk about anything outside of work. We're logged off of Teams and and we're at the happy hour now. You mentioned that you love to cook. Now I
Mhm.
love to eat. So what do you what do you like to? I'd love to hear more about what you like to cook.
Oh wow. Okay. So I hate following recipes. So for me, like, I would just have the different, the sets. I will have like I don't know, the same ingredients I will buy every week from a shop, but from those ingredients I will always create a different dish. I'm just like, I will add a bit of this and I will add a bit of that, and like create a dish. So I'm absolutely hating proportions and be very scientific about it. That's why I'm not really a baker, because you have to follow the recipe. So I'm trying to be like very adventurous in the kitchen and create my own, own dishes. And again, try to cook and create some dishes that will be, I will eat them, but also my children, who are only like 3 and 5, and they are really fussy as well. So yeah, extra level of difficulties comes in. And it's quite interesting, because my husband's Scottish, I'm Polish. So I'm trying to use some of the ingredients he uses to more, and then bring things from Polish cuisine, when there's like, I don't know, lots of cooking with cabbage and so on. So yeah.
Certainly. What are some go-to meals that you like to either one like to cook or that you are like, yeah, this is a good one. This one that I always make.
Yeah, my signature dish, as I will call it, it's I don't think it's actually properly Polish. I think it's more Hungarian, but it's smoked sausages with peppers and chopped tomatoes. So yeah,
Awesome.
this is the first thing I cook for my husband to be at the time, and yeah,
That's
it's
that's awesome. I also wanted just to to talk to you about being a blog owner, and
mhm.
creating content and different things. How have I know there's a lot of people in the space that do that. What do you find like personally enjoyable about creating a blog? You know, this is
Hmm.
another on the spot question, but um,
No, of course, of course. It's like every time I'm writing a blog, I'm revisiting my personal experiences. So I really enjoy that element because I'm just kind of thinking back where I am now and when I was and how I managed to get here. So it's like nice to revisit your memories around certain situation, and like for example how I didn't know it at the time, but after working on a specific project, or doing something, I learned that, and or I did something wrong twice, but the first time round I got it right, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna share that with others, and try to save them from those painful experiences. um and again, I'm a bit old school, and I like really like PowerPoint. So after I will write a blog, I will always go to PowerPoint and kind of nicely summarize that, and so on. So yeah, that those two elements for sure.
that's awesome. Anna, the conversation's been great. I've been loving talking to you. If somebody was listening and wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way that they could reach you?
Um, I am getting lots of LinkedIn messages, and I try to reply to them all to the best I can. Sometimes if I don't reply to you, please don't take it personally. I'm just, I'm a busy mom working full time. I'm trying to be a blogger, so I have lots of responsibilities, and I try to allocate some time for engaging with others. So yeah, just please message me, remind prompt me again. I will eventually go back to you, or even put the comment under the post as well, and yeah, I will be in touch with you for sure.
Awesome. Anna's LinkedIn is in the description in the show notes. Thank you, Anna, for being here. Thank you to you for singing the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfelt, the host of Citizen Developer. I'm excited to connect with you guys in the next one.